This is not psychotherapy. Dr. Wills does not have a provider-patient relationship with this guest. These are just two people talking about emotions.
Welcome to Give a F Actually, with your host, Dr. Alex Wills.
Hey, it's Dr. Alex Wills. Welcome to Give a Fuck Actually. Today we're here with Wendy Myers. How's it going, Wendy?
I'm great. Thank you.
Thanks for being on. It took us a few tries to make it work, but we're here.
Yes.
So Dr. Wendy Myers is a naturopathic doctor and founder of MyersDetox.com. She is a heavy metal detox and bioenergetics expert, as well as the #1 bestselling author of Limitless Energy, How to Detox Toxic Metals to End Exhaustion and Chronic Fatigue. Wendy is the host of a top 100 rated podcast, the Myers Detox Podcast, about protecting your health with detoxification. Does that all sound right?
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. Yeah, I've been podcasting for a long time, for almost 9 years. And so, but thanks you so much for having me on the show. I love coming on other people's shows.
Yeah, Wendy was kind enough to have me on her show earlier this year, I guess, and that was a great experience. How many episodes are you up to? Do you keep count?
I'm almost at 500. I said I can't believe it, but it's, a lot to talk about on the subject of, and my podcast is on detoxification. So not every podcast is on that, but most of them are about, heavy metal environmental toxins and how to remove them from your body and what health issues they cause. And so it's a passion of mine. But psychology and emotional trauma is also a big passion of mine as well. So I'm really excited to talk about that on the show today.
Yeah, it's awesome. And where's the best place that people can find you?
Yeah, you can find me at MyersDetox.com, and I'm on all the social media handles or Myers Detox. And then I'm on YouTube at youtube.com/Wendy Myers.
Awesome. Any news? What's kind of going on for you these days?
Well, I live in Mexico and decided to move down here and have a permanent vacation. And so life's really, really good. And, this summer I'm going to travel with my boyfriend around the world and maybe settle in Bali. So life's amazing right now.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Bali. So, wow, Mexico, it must be great down there.
Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, I went to the beach a couple days ago and it's beautiful Mexican Riviera, Caribbean. So I'm in near Cancun. That's nice.
Very cool. Yeah, so where would you like to start off today?
Well, you know what? I can talk a little bit about my own health journey and see if that kind of resonates with people. Because, I'm a health nut. I love doing everything for my health. And I'm 50 years old and I've always been into health and doing different things. And, I've reached a point where I felt like I'd done everything for my health, but I still would wake up just feeling kind of blah, just meh, just kind of gray and flat. And I just thought, what exactly do I have to do in order to feel good? And you always hear things like, oh, happiness is a choice and just love yourself. Say, I love yourself in the mirror, but it's just not that simple. And what I learned in my journey, I met a number of different people and met someone that talked about, they had a bioenergetic program software that you can do a scan on yourself and detect your emotional traumas and what organs that they're affecting. And I thought, that's really interesting. I'd had like 10 years of talk therapy, which was great. I'd become an expert in my neuroses and I had, done a lot of self-help stuff and read all the books. And I still just felt like there was so much more that I needed to do. And I couldn't quite pinpoint it. And I didn't want to go to therapy again. I've talked about all the issues in the past and I just kind of didn't want to do that anymore. I just felt like I was done. And so I did this scan and started doing this bioenergetic program. It's called Nest Health. And I just could not believe just the releases I was having emotionally doing this program. And I also had been bulimic, since I was a teen, and it just disappeared. I mean, it just stopped happening. And certainly I have occasionally have, a bout here and there of that, but it was no longer a solution or a stress mechanism that I needed to employ anymore, because the underlying root cause, whatever the trauma or emotion or stuck emotion or what have you, that was the impetus to be bulimic or binge and purge, just wasn't there anymore. And so I just had no desire to engage in that behavior. And I also found myself handling stress a lot better, sleeping a lot better, generally feeling better emotionally, because I was releasing emotional trauma. And so I started studying this more and more and more. I've been doing this program for about 7 years. And it's phenomenal. And I recently produced a course called the Emotional Detox Program. And in my research, all this conventional medical research, I learned a lot more about the shocking statistics, really, that 65% or more of physical health issues are caused by emotional trauma, more specifically parental attachment issues, where you're not kind of really bonding with your caregiver, or there's neglect, or there's abuse. But not everyone has to have outright abuse. I always thought of emotional trauma as, mental, physical, sexual abuse or of some kind. But for me, it was just neglect. Parents that were emotionally available because they're on depression, divorce, or what have you. But I think a lot of people don't identify with having emotional trauma. So it's not something they think of to work on, or something that needs to be addressed, but it can be anything that you aren't emotionally ready to deal with. It can cause you a trauma that leaves an imprint. It leaves a energetic imprint on you that actually can be very easily released. And it's not, and a lot of these things you're not consciously aware of them. So you're not able to verbalize them, say in talk therapy, And so all this stuff I just found very, very fascinating. I've always been interested in psychology my whole life. And so really unpacking all this and researching this for years, I think for me, it's something that when I'm working with patients, I want them to work on doing emotional trauma work, because they're coming to me for physical issues, and so they kind of are surprised when I want them to do emotional trauma work and do this very, very simple things actually to release their emotional trauma. That goes a long way to improving their health and helping them emotionally as well.
Yeah, years ago, I took a deep dive into 5 or 6 different therapies, which really helped to get into some of the emotional trauma stored in the body, a lot of inner child work to kind of release those things. I developed something called emotional somatic release therapy. And I haven't heard of Nest Health. Could you maybe walk us through how does the body scan work if somebody wanted to do this? Like, what's kind of the step-by-step of what would happen?
Yes. So Nest Health, it's NES Health. And so you can learn more about that on myersdetox.com. But Nest Health is a bioenergetics software. It tests over 800 different data points. You get a wealth of information about all different types of energetic blocks you have in your body, and all the different emotional traumas you have, emotions, positive and negative emotions that are resonating with you, because they all have a frequency that can be measured. So all your emotions, everything on the planet resonates at a certain frequency. And these things can be measured, just like, your internet's over whatever, like your cell phone is at, 5.8 megahertz or whatever. We all know that all these different frequencies, information travels on these frequencies. That's why you get movies downloaded into your phone. Your whole body works like that as well. And so you get information is traveling on energy waves throughout your body. So all this stuff, all the health issues, all the emotional traumas, all can be measured with this scan. And there's many, many different bioenergetic modalities. This is just one of them, one that I happen to use and I really enjoy and like, and have seen it work and or work to improve health. And so you do a scan. And the scan is very simple. You just do a voice scan, and very, very easy to do. You can do it anywhere in the world. We have clients all over the world, even like North Korea and Egypt. And, we have clients everywhere. And so you just do this voice scan, and you just count from 0 to 10, and all the frequencies in your body can be measured. And then you can review that with a practitioner if you like. And there's just a wealth of information in this scan, like I said, including your emotional traumas. So.
Yeah. And then once you get the scan results back, what's kind of the play-by-play after that?
Yeah. So then the software will recommend maybe these, what are called infoceuticals. It's corrective information, like correct operating instructions are imprinted into salt water. And when you put that salt water with that information in that infoceutical, you put that in your mouth, then that resonates at a certain frequency, and that information gets sent to your cells, those operating instructions, and it kind of corrects whatever's going on, whatever came up in your scan, whether it's correcting your pancreatic function or releasing an emotional trauma or correcting your blood sugar control or whatever's going on with you. It will give you correct information.
And since it's unconscious stuff, it doesn't require psychological insight. Like you don't need to know that, this event happened when I was 4, it got stored in my pancreas, and I have to release the emotion of overwhelm or whatever it might be.
No, everything, it just has a frequency. It just measures that frequency. The software also prioritizes the issues because we can't fix everything at once. So we get the priorities that you need to address and the order in which they need to be addressed. And so the software's been around, the company's been around for 45 years, and they've developed the software over the last 20 years, many reiterations. So it's very, very sophisticated software. And so, you don't need to know what happened in the past. A lot of things happen that we don't remember as a child, or things happen to us that we don't really think about or didn't think really affected us. But they can still, be in our energy field affecting our health. So I wanted to explain one concept of like the energy field. So, and this has been scientifically validated by HeartMath Institute, been studying this for, several decades. So we have this energy field it's about, say 3 meters or 10 feet in diameter around our body. And in this energy field, or your body field, is where our cells communicate, our brain communicates with our organs, our heart communicates with all the other organs. And there's this information highway that's happening in our energy field. And it's actually the primary way that our body communicates. And this is lots of scientific research to show this as well. And so our emotions, traumas, et cetera, they have this energetic frequency that is in our energy field. And say when you have a negative emotion like anger, for instance, and it's just repressed and it's just still in your energy field, maybe it's affecting your liver. When you have that trauma or that emotion stuck in your liver, for instance, it's going to start affecting its physical functioning. And so it will block messages. There'll be an energetic block where correct operating instructions or information from your brain are not going to make it to your liver, or it'll be distorted. And over time, that affects your liver's functioning, where you could get liver cancer, or you get a liver that's not producing enough bile to digest your fats, or whatever dysfunction. Your liver is your first line of your immunity. Maybe your immunity starts, tapering down and not working as well. And so there's lots of different, things that can happen when it comes to your liver. So that's just one example of how you can have a breakdown in physical functioning when you have this energetic block happening, and that can happen anywhere in your body. And so that's really how these emotional traumas and stuck emotions can impact our physical health, and can and do cause so many of our major chronic illnesses and health issues and cancers and things like that.
What attracted me so much to psychiatry and medical school was I love the different subspecialties, surgery, ophthalmology, all of these particular things. However, my personal take was, in a way, you kind of become a body mechanic, and you sort of do the same thing over and over again. Whereas with psychiatry, mental health, you're working with the interface between the mind, the psyche, the physical body, and you're kind of on the cusp of, where science sort of, you're at the end of the frontier where you're not really able to know everything. There's so much that we don't know compared to what we do know. And it's like for somebody that's, really into the X-Files or something, it's just a never-ending mystery. So with a lot of this stuff, it's fascinating. And the proof is in the pudding, because if you experience it and it works, there's this thing called phenomenology, where we may not be able to completely understand the exact method of every little part of it, but we know that there's something there. So I'm curious, for your own story, do you have any examples of, you kind of shared a little bit about the bulimia, but what was your experience with this? What was kind of the step-by-step of how you went through it and how you became, I guess, sort of a believer from experiencing it?
Yeah, well, so, I started doing Nest Health. And so that's how I really got in this bioenergetic software program. And I really got into releasing my emotional trauma in that way, doing a scan like once a month. And then I was researching more and started researching biofield tuning, where I believe she's a doctor, Eileen McCusick, is really a pioneer. And she's done years and years and years of research on biofield tuning and has developed a whole kind of a protocol around that. I don't have a biofield tuning fork around here, but so it's just a little fork, and you kind of hit it on something and it creates this resonant frequency, and you put that on your body. You can put it anywhere on your body. You can put it on your face or I put it right on my chest, on my heart, and then it resonates out to your entire body field. And doing that, and do it maybe 20 minutes a day, doing it almost like a meditation, can really help to release a lot of different emotions, especially if you do it intentionally. So you can say something like, I intend to transmute anger. You hit it again. I intend to transmute anger. I intend to transmute worthlessness. And it's really profound how well it works. And you're setting this frequency to your body, and it vibrates these toxic emotions out of your energy field. And it's really profound. And I've had Eileen McCusick on my podcast several times talking about how it works. And it's just really fascinating. But there's 5 emotions that everybody has. There are kind of 5 negative emotions that everyone has that are the result of traumas that we've experienced. And there are things that I encourage people to work on to release with biofield tuning. And so those are self-hatred, worthlessness, powerlessness, self-deprivation, and survival fear. And so that's kind of a weird, kind of an interesting mix of emotions that I think I definitely did not identify with when I first started doing biofield tuning. And so just in all of my research, I discovered these are the emotions that most people need to release. And for me, I was in a very toxic relationship, several years ago. And I realized over the course of being in this toxic relationship, this person wasn't really treating me well and was kind of like controlling and just was like kind of a, narcissistic person and just not good for me. And I realized the reason I got into this relationship was because of feeling worthless, feeling self-hatred, pathological loneliness, and a feeling kind of powerlessness. And when I started working on these emotions and started releasing them with biofield tuning, I found myself less and less attracted to this person. I felt myself getting stronger and stronger. And really, while you start clearing all these emotions, your self-love blooms. And that's the whole point for doing this work, for doing this trauma work, for doing, releasing negative stuck emotions with biofield tuning, is to allow your self-love to bloom by removing the roadblocks to that. And in that whole process of releasing these emotions, I was able to finally get the courage to leave this person. And it ended up being happened a lot faster and easier. And I was very relieved after it happened, because I think there's a lot of people in relationships where they're not happy or they feel controlled or they just, chose this person for maybe the wrong reasons because they are just kind of, at the mercy of their emotional trauma. And so we choose people, and attract people kind of where we're at in our maybe scale of self-love, so to speak. And so when you're able to release these emotions and work on your emotional trauma, a lot of people end up leaving the person they're with or leaving their jobs or moving and have a lot of change in shifts and alignments in their life where they're aligning more into their life purpose and attracting people that help them on their mission and their life purpose. And I found certainly for me, that was the case. And I'm just, and that was just a couple of years ago. And so I just feel like my life is so much different from doing this work, doing a lot of very intensive type work has really allowed me to step more into my purpose, which is helping other people. And this relationship I was in was draining my energy, draining my time. And it was just taking my focus away from what I needed to be doing, was to helping others.
Right. Yeah, I really want to look into these things. It's exciting to see kind of these different technologies, aiding with the emotional healing. Translating this into give a fuck speak, so to speak, it's interesting. I wonder if you would agree that it's almost the definition of the emotional trauma is there was an intense emotion, some kind of an experience, and then there was, by definition, something that was very overwhelming about it and some kind of interpretation made in the mind of what that meant. Because when I look at these 5 different ones you talked about, it's like there's this emotion, but there's also this belief about it. So I think of, hate as just sort of a pure emotion that happens when something hateful happens and we just kind of pick up on that. But then self-hate becomes this whole story where there's something about me that is bad that I should hate or I'm not good enough kind of a thing. Would you agree with that? Or how do you kind of understand these things?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point, because when you develop certain negative emotions or beliefs about yourself, that you're not lovable, you have self-hatred or worthlessness, you're not worth having a partner treat you well, or whatever the case may be. These all stem from our parental relationships, from our developmental trauma, from essentially. And so many of, and these become woven into your personality. If you've heard of the Enneagram personality typing, these character traits, like people as a result of their trauma, can become people pleasers. They can become bullies. They can have avoidant or whatever. So they can become people that just love to party and they're constantly distracting themselves with partying and friends and substances and things like that. And so this how we were raised and how we were treated as a child, and this is before the age of 7. So many of our core personality traits happened before the age of 7. A lot of our personality is developed during that time. So it's not that you can't. That's what in therapy, you can't talk yourself out of your personality, And so, and a lot of these beliefs that you have, you've been operating on these beliefs and about yourself, and they affect the jobs you take, the friendships you have, the relationships you choose, how you spend money, if you use drugs or not, or alcohol, so these personality traits, these beliefs we have, are essentially, and how we behave are these personality traits that are much easily addressed when you address them energetically, when you can release these beliefs about yourself, or these emotions, by using biofield tuning fork therapy, by using, like I said, there's many other methods of energy medicine. You can use Rife devices. I have a Rife. You can use Ness Health. There's BioMeridian. There's just all different types of bioenergetic software like that. But anything that's kind of a frequency based or sound therapy modality can release these negative emotions and then the kind of maladaptive behaviors that we have as a result of these beliefs. But these all start when we're very, very young. And so it's not as simple as something where you can go to talk therapy and kind of talk yourself out of these beliefs that you have. And many people don't even know they have these beliefs. Like for me, when I first started doing this work, I thought that I was like, my business is really successful. I'm helping other people. I have a relationship. He's totally in love with me and I'm in love with him. And I felt really good about myself. I was living in Mexico in this amazing place. I'm like, I'm checking all these boxes, all these goals that I have, but yet I still have look in the mirror and don't feel good. I still am with someone who doesn't treat me well. There's still all these little things where I was like, something's just not quite right here, but I didn't really know why, but in my head, I felt like I was successful and I was happy for the most part, So there's a lot that to unpack when you start kind of doing this work. And a lot of people can be surprised by the emotions that they carry and how it's really affecting them on a deep level.
I think of the analogy, if you've ever seen your computer defragmenting your hard drive, where they have all of those, the grid of the blue dots or the blue squares, and then the red ones where things are fragmented, and then your computer slowly goes through and it gets rid of the red ones and it consolidates everything and makes everything nice and neat and blue colors or green colors. I think we've all seen this, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of back to the phenomenology idea. With the emotional brain, the emotional experience, there's not a lot of logic. There's not a lot of stories. It's more, binary. It's kind of like black, white, all or nothing. And so the way that makes sense to me is sometimes with these emotional traumas, and like you said, it could be something like neglect. It doesn't have to be this capital T trauma where there was this horrific abuse scenario, but it could be, habitual. It could be, over time, or it could just be something that was small, but it was experienced by the person as something that was feeding into that story, that self-hate, worthlessness, or whatever these maladaptive beliefs might be. And in doing some of these different modalities, whether it's with energy or hypnosis, trying to get to that level, it's almost like this automatic reset. Some of my patients have done MDMA and they have these intentions of healing. And instead of it being this process of like the traditional psychotherapy, like, oh, I understand myself and this was my story and this is my logic and now here's the new logic and here's the new story. It's more just instantaneous. It's resetting those grid pieces that went wrong somewhere along the way and just healing them, setting them right again. So you're kind of released. And I'm curious for you, what kind of bridges that gap between getting healed and then getting some insight into what was healed? Or is that even necessary? Do you have a lot of traumas that were healed that you don't even know? You just know that you feel better now and you no longer have these maladaptive relationship patterns.
Yes, exactly. So you don't really have to know what happened to you or know what's affecting you. When you do a scan, a Nest Health scan, it will pick up all the traumas that you have that are resonating for you at that time that you can release. Or you do biofield tuning, you can start with the emotions that you really feel like you need to release. In my emotional detox program, I have a whole list of all the emotions. I have a whole PDF. There's 55 different emotions and you can go through and there's ones that you resonate with, but I have, and you can, work on releasing those, but I have the top 5 ones that I mentioned before, which are the powerlessness, the self-hatred, the worthlessness and the survival fear and the powerlessness. When most people start on those, and most people have about 400 hours of biofield tuning they need to do. So it's something that's like kind of a practice you do, like a meditation every day. And I think it's much more effective than meditation because meditation, there's a lot of research behind that, but it doesn't release your emotional trauma. It can reduce your stress, it can improve your heart rate variability and things like that, which is great, improve sleep. but it doesn't release your emotional trauma. So I think it's more effective to do something that's more like active when you're taking that time for meditation, to do something like biofield tuning that we know based on the research does release emotional trauma. And so, but you can, like I said, you can do those top 5 emotions that will go a long way to helping you to feel better mentally and physically. And then you can do other things that you need to do. Say you need to do loneliness, or that maybe that's keeping you in that toxic relationship, or maybe you need to do anger, whatever. You can look at resentment, or if you're working more than your husband and, that's a kind of a function of envy, then you can work on resentment, and there's just a lot of different things that, a lot of different emotions, and there's a whole list there that people can work through and whatever kind of feels right for them. But anything maybe you're unconscious of, you can do Nest Health scans, and it'll pick up all the emotions or traumas that you need to work on.
Now, I'm assuming that you weren't just healed of this and got sort of cleared or released, but you also developed some insight into what it was for you. And how did you get that insight, or was that not even a necessary component for you? I'm assuming that you have some insight into a lot of these traumas and a lot of these stuck emotions, and you develop some more self-knowledge, some psychological insight. And so I'm just curious how that came for you or not.
Oh, just me personally, or developing my
Oh,
program?
Sure. Yeah, you personally, or any examples?
Yes. Yeah. So I think, basically I went through, I've had a lot of therapy, in my life, and I've read a lot of the books, and I've taken a lot of courses actually on psychology. And I think I had a very good understanding of what was going on with me. I knew all the traumas I had with my family. But I think another thing that really struck me was learning about transgenerational trauma, and how trauma from your ancestors can travel from your energy field, from your grandmother's energy field to your mother's energy field to your energy field. And there's conventional research about this on Holocaust survivors and how those traumas transfer down to their offspring. And I just found that really fascinating. And I found that I was having to release that type of trauma, stuff that didn't even happen to me, but it was still affecting me and my mental health and my physical health that I had to release. And I consulted with, actually, I've talked to different medical intuitives as well. That's a little bit like woo-woo out there, but I'm going there. But that had some really interesting insight into past emotional trauma that I had. Great grandmother, that it was still affecting me today. And there's another really interesting software called Zyto, and they have a software called Evox that you do a scan, and that's very, very creepy, eerily accurate. The stuff that comes up in this Zyto Evox scan. And I did this with a medical doctor, a friend of mine who's a cancer doctor, and he helps his cancer patients, and the cancer tumors disappear just by doing emotional trauma work, because many cancers are emotional trauma based. And that's the underlying root cause and genesis of these cancers. And so that completely blew my mind, doing this Evox scan and kind of doing some reprogramming and, energy release, doing this kind of, it's another form of bioenergetic scanning and work that you can do. And so there's just a lot of different things I unpacked on this journey that I put into my emotional detox program. That this program is at 30 hours long. There's a lot of information in it, because you have to work there's a multi-level approach to it. So you have to do the bioenergetic approach, which we've talked about. There's a psychological approach that you need to address, like mindset and dealing with other people when you're going through all these changes, and also looking at your heart rate variability, looking at your stress set point, because many people were born super stressed out. So they have a very high stress set point. Their nervous system is just like on edge. And so they need to do physical things to bring down their stress set point. So doing things like vagus nerve stimulation to help calm down their nervous system, retrain their nervous system, doing things like that stop processes to stop negative thoughts and stop rumination and, this repeated worry that some people can have. And there's a lot of different psychological techniques as well in the program. And then third is the physical aspect, because if your blood sugar is out of control, you're not going to be able to fix anxiety or depression, or if you're not sleeping, all the other work you're doing is really going to be not as effective. So I have like 13 hours of different things that people can do to fix their health and address the most important aspects of their health, like their diet. And a lot of people, it's really interesting. A lot of people with emotional trauma have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. They have SIBO. And so they have digestive issues as a result of that. So I have like a 2-week kind of a fasting program people can do to eliminate small intestinal bowel overgrowth. And I believe about 85% of people with, about 85% of cases of SIBO are due to emotional trauma. And I go into all of the kind of domino effect, all in excruciating detail about how the trauma causes the small intestinal bowel overgrowth. So there's really a lot of information, conventional medical research packed into this emotional detox program.
Yeah. So emotional detox program, I'm going to have to check that out more. It sounds like you've put a lot of work into it. It's exciting. Yes.
Yeah. It's really fascinating. And I have some really fascinating statistics too. I think it'll be really interesting for people, so these traumas that people have in the conventional medical research, they're called adverse childhood events, or ACEs. And 67% of people have at least one ACE. And if people have 4 or more ACEs, and this is a conventional medical research by Kaiser Permanente, and they studied about 17,000 people. And what they found was that if people have 4 or more ACEs, they have a 16.5% chance of being a current smoker. If people have 4 or more ACEs, 18.3% of those have attempted suicide. 4 or more ACEs, 50.7% of people have experienced 2 or more weeks of depression in the past year. 28.4% of people with 4 or more ACEs have used illegal drugs. 12% of people with 4 or more ACEs are overweight or obese. And 18% of people are alcoholic that have 4 or more ACEs. And people have, if you have 4 or more ACEs, you're 2 times more likely to have cancer, 4.6 more likely to have heart disease, 3 times more likely to have financial problems, 2 times more likely to have a stroke, 4 times more likely to have lung disease. It just goes on and on and on and on. It's just really, and this is just one study that found this. And there were some issues in the research, though. There were a lot of adverse childhood events that they actually didn't quantify for, a lot of them. So, I believe like this research said that 65% of physical health issues are caused by emotional trauma, these adverse childhood events. But I think it's upwards of more like 85, 90%. If you factor in many of the adverse childhood events that the study missed. So I go into all that research and everything in the program.
Yeah, and the ACE questionnaire is something, accepted in mainstream psychiatry as something that we do, utilize. It has really robust data behind it, and it's important to pay attention to. I'm curious, have you done any past life regression work or experiences?
I have. Yes, yeah. I've done past life regression. I thought it was really interesting. It was so amazing because I've been very grounded in the sciences, since I was a young age. And I was always very skeptical of all my friends going to psychics and intuitives. And I was like, please. And so I think just in my whole journey, I realized there are people that are intuitives. There are people that have gifts, that we all do have a direct line to source where we can ask for help. And that's why the research shows prayer works, And so when I talked to this intuitive, if you will, they found that actually my first husband in my past life had actually been my butler. I was a very wealthy woman, and my husband had been my butler in this past lifetime. And he really wasn't that into me, but he wanted a taste of my lifestyle and what it would be like to live this lifestyle and whatnot. And so we ended up falling in love and getting married. But he was never really that into me or committed to me, or I just wasn't the right person for him. And I was like, wow, that just sounds a lot like our marriage in this life. And so I thought that was like really interesting. And this person said all kinds of stuff she would have never have known. It was just, this is a really gifted person that had been referred to me. And she helped me like cut the cord from that person. And she's saying, this person is really affecting you a lot in your current relationship. And I thought, that's weird. I thought I'd processed that person and moved on, and so we did this kind of like, there's just things you can do like to cut energetic cords so that your past relationships are not affecting you today. And so I thought that was just a really interesting concept and something that I did from people in my past. And yeah, it's all been very interesting.
Yeah. I'm really open to trying, anything. And I'm also very skeptical too. I was referred to one lady, I think she was in Amsterdam, and I did one session of a past life regression, and, I went along with it, and it was the wildest experience. I can't explain it to this day, but it was like I was watching this movie play out in front of me, and she wasn't suggesting anything. I was, generating the entire story of what happened, what I saw, and it was just like I was reliving this experience. And looking back to it, now it's like this memory like I have of this like real event that happened, or this like really good movie that I watched. And I to this day, I don't know where the details, like there's so many details that came, and there's like images of faces and people. Like in this past life, I had a wife and I was a blacksmith, and I ended up getting beheaded. And I had children, and they had red hair, like all of these, wild things going on. So I don't know what to make of it. I haven't gone back to try again, but it's still very, it was a moving experience to say the least.
Yeah. There's a lot of really interesting ways to address your past. Let's just put it that way. I mean, there's endless ways. And so I have a lot of suggestions for people to try different things, as my journey is not going to work for everyone. And so there's lots of different paths that people can take, like you said, doing MDMA or, the frog medicine, or do the combo, or ayahuasca, or, I've had friends that have had phenomenal results using mushrooms, and they're totally different people doing kind of like low dose, microdosing of mushrooms and psilocybin, whatever. And so there's lots of ways to skin that chicken, and improve your life. But, I think a lot of people really focus on their physical health, when they're trying to get better or feel better. And, if you have like complex chronic illness, chronic fatigue, pain syndromes, or whatever, you just wake up feeling meh, like I do. But your life, you should be happy. Like for me, I looked at my life, I'm like, why am I not shit-eating happy right now? I have this, so I've had several periods in my life where I have an amazing life, and I just don't feel good. I just feel kind of ugh. Or like, why? I want to wake up feeling joy. I want to wake up feeling happiness. I want to, and so by doing emotional trauma work, using sound therapy, using bioenergetic modalities, biofield tuning, and there's other modalities as well, you can kind of clear that path, clear these roadblocks that are kind of standing in your way between yourself and happiness, and really stepping into your life purpose and the life that you want to create for yourself.
You're a trailblazer, and it's so nice to have a guide who's, looked at the scientific research behind this stuff, that's done the work to kind of map it out, to give people options to look into, to see, where there might be some promise with this stuff. Because if you look at the mental health statistics around us, we're failing. The suicide rates continue to go up. People are still suffering quite a bit. So we are still very early on our journey towards figuring it all out, for sure.
Yeah. And I know for me, I don't mean to like poo-poo doing talk therapy or anything like that. I mean, for me, it's been phenomenally helpful and to figure out your mommy and daddy issues and, how to relate to other people and what's appropriate, what's not, how to be in relationships. It's incredibly helpful to learn how to navigate this world. It's great. But when it comes to like emotional trauma, I think there a different approach, an energetic approach, it needs to be employed.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, was there anything else that you wanted to get to or leave us with?
No, I think that's about it. You guys can find me on MyersDetox.com, and the program I talked about is the emotional detox program. It's on MyersDetox.com under programs. And I've got lots of podcasts on emotional trauma as well, if you want to dig into that. And my first love is heavy metal and environmental toxin detox, because I think that's another big roadblock to people's functioning, because in my decade of research, different heavy metals and chemicals affect our hormones. They affect our neurotransmitters. They affect just our ability to control our blood sugar. They cause so many different issues, and physical and mental, in our bodies. So I think that's another roadblock essentially that needs to be removed to have ideal functioning. And detoxing is very anti-aging as well, because, these toxins cause free radical damage and oxidative stress. And so when you remove that, you just are really reversing the clock as well.
As I said before, the proof is in the pudding. And if you can see the video right now, I cannot believe you look, 20 years younger than your stated age, which is one of the things that, we always, comment on when we're doing our notes and stuff. But yeah, it's amazing like what you've discovered, and you've really blazed a trail so people can get a lot of wealth of experience and information without having to do all the work and reinvent the wheel on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of research that went into all these discoveries. That's just say I'm very motivated to be healthy and to look young. So I'm just, happy to share this knowledge and information with people so that they can, because I love helping people and love, helping people find that piece of the puzzle. Because I was there once too. I have a health crises and mental health crises myself. And, I wanted to create a resource for people to kind of figure out, what's going on with them, apart from the kind of, I guess, big myopia that they're getting at their doctors. There's just a lot of information when they seek out help from their doctor. There's a lot of information, a lot of solutions that people aren't getting. So for me, I found that very frustrating. Like, why can't you figure out what's going on with me? Or, I think there's a big shift that people have to have from relying on their medical doctor and taking a pill to taking full responsibility for their health. And you have to do the work yourself, and you're going to be your own best advocate. And so I think there's a lot of self-responsibility that people have to have in improving their diet and not eating sugar and junk food. And, your mental and physical health depends on that. And you have to exercise, and you have to detox, and you have to do this emotional detox. And there's just a lot of things that you have to do to care for yourself to improve your health that does not involve a pill for every ill. And so these are the things that I found that the things I talk about are the things you're not getting at your doctor, like where you have to take minerals. That's the most important supplement. You have to work on emotional trauma. You have to work on detoxification. And so I talk about very much alternative things that people aren't, kind of the information they're not getting at their conventional and even functional medical doctor as well.
Dr. Wendy Myers, it's been enlightening. Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
If you want to learn more from Wendy Myers, you can watch her free masterclass at emodetox.com. It's a 1-hour masterclass summing up how emotional trauma leads to physical health issues and touching on how to address emotional trauma successfully. That is emo-detox.com.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. This is Dr. Alex Wills with Give a F Actually. Make sure to check us out on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you get your podcasts.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out the merch store. RadicalEmotionalAcceptance.com. Bye.
Bye.